133 before Jesus Christ, the city became part of the Roman Empire. The reform of the port began. A port that was more than just a way for the traffic of people and goods. It was also the monumental entrance to the city.
It was one of the largest cities in the Roman Empire, a major center for trade and commerce, which also became one of the most important cities for early Christianity. The harbor was the city's biggest asset. It's what allowed Ephesus to become such a large city and bustling trading hub in the Roman age, and today it lies 5 kilometers from the coast. This fertile valley was once a bay. Over the centuries, the river pushed silt into the bay, which sank to the bottom and slowly filled it up with sediment. In 129 BC, the Romans gained control over Ephesus, and a century later, in 27 BC, Augustus made it the new capital of the Roman province of Asia, which gave the city a renewed importance, and it grew in size. By this point, the silt had also enveloped the natural harbor around the Roman city. But with their engineering skills, they were able to maintain a portion of it, and turned it into an artificial harbor. Eventually, they had to dig a canal in order to maintain the connection with the sea. And it would only get worse. As the coastline kept inching farther and farther away, they had to keep making the canal longer and longer. It would eventually merge with the river too. St. Paul also lived in the city, and contributed significantly to the growth of its early Christian community. As a result, it became one of the 7 churches of Asia, that is, one of the 7 largest Christian communities in the Roman province of Asia. And in 431 AD, the city hosted a council to settle once and for all a centuries-old theological dispute about the nature of Jesus. Its outcome still affects Christian doctrine today. This was the Council of Ephesus. I explained how Christians leaving the Holy Land in the 1st century were traveling on that vast trade network, which brought them all over the empire, including to Rome itself, and to Ephesus. On his 3rd journey, he came back to Ephesus and lived here for almost 3 years. It's believed that he wrote his epistles to the Corinthians from Ephesus, that is, letters to the Christian community in Corinth, a city in Greece where he also lived for a year and a half. His ministry in Ephesus was crucial for the growth of the early Christian community here, but his work was not without its challenges. He first tried to preach to the local Jews in their synagogue, but the Jews would have none of that and resisted his teachings. He then moved his operations to the school of Tyrannus, probably an academy of some sort, where he would preach for the next 2 years. But the biggest resistance he got was from the devotees of the cult of Artemis, and the artisans who made the various images, statues, and trinkets associated with the goddess felt threatened by Paul's conspicuous preaching, and feared that the popularity of this new religion would threaten their businesses. A leader in the artisan guild named Demetrius gathered his colleagues in the great theater in order to discuss what to do about Paul. Passions were running high, and this broke out into a riot that almost killed Paul, before he was whisked away by the authorities. This story illustrates the challenges of preaching Christianity in a city where the worship of a pagan deity was deeply ingrained in the culture and psyche, as well as in the local economy. In 62 AD, some 5 years later, while in Rome under house arrest as he was awaiting trial, he wrote his epistles to the Ephesians, letters to the Christians of Ephesus. In these letters, he provided them with spiritual mentorship and guidance, so he clearly kept his ties with the community and continued to be a spiritual leader for them, even from afar, and 5 years later. Paul had a strong impact on Ephesus, and it's thanks to him that the Christian community there grew to be one of the largest in the empire. Ephesus developed into one of the most important Christian cities in the early centuries.
thank you